The subject of retro games and retro game preservation, I think, is very important because we can't really learn anything without being able to look back on the past. And my god, is there like a gold mine of very good classic games to discover. And all of these Nintendo Switch applications that you have to pay a minimum of $20 a year to access, up to $50 for the N64 and Genesis stuff, yeah, maybe not the best, but it at least shows good intentions. Emphasis on intentions. So hello everyone, this is Lazuli, as I'm sure you may or may not know, and I'm welcoming you to my very first, well, it's not going to be the first retro game Let's Play I've done, but it's going to be a very special playthrough nonetheless, because we are about to Let's Play one of my favorite games of all time, because it was recently put on the Nintendo 64 application. So, all these other ones may get like a Let's Play something or another on them in the future, but before we do any of those, we need to focus on a big boy. And this one costs $50 a year, so it's kind of a big boy. So let's head on over to the Nintendo 64 application. Alright, so welcome to the Nintendo 64 Nintendo Switch Online application. Boy, that's a mouthful. Like, that's really a mouthful. And as of the recording of this, it's January 2022, and the options are fairly slim. But if you know anything about the Nintendo 64's library, you know that it's definitely a quality over quantity situation. Perhaps unlike the PlayStation 1, maybe, depending on how you look at it. Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, Stone Cold Classic. Not my favorite 3D Zelda, but I can definitely see why. Super Mario 64, do I need to say anything else? Mario Kart 64. Boy, it's aged, but it's still fun somehow. Yoshi's Story, oh god, Yoshi's Story. I might be talking about Yoshi's Story one of these days, just you wait and see. Star Fox 64, another classic. Not even necessarily a genre I like very much, but it's a very good game. These two, I don't know if they're really worth bringing up. Mario Tennis is pretty good. Dr. Mario 64, definitely something I want to get into more. But the original Paper Mario game is one of my favorite games of all time. Right up there with the likes of Yoshi's Island, and Spyro the Dragon, a bunch of other games, honestly. Ratchet & Clank Up Your Arsenal is another good one. But, yeah, without further ado, let's dive right into this, why don't we? released in 2000 in Japan, but it released in 2001 in other territories, as it were. Paper Mario is not the first Mario RPG ever made, but it's one of the earliest ones, you see. Super Mario RPG predates it, but that's the only one that predates it. Paper Mario was originally going to be a sequel to Super Mario RPG, and in some respects it still is, but for the most part, it kind of evolved into its own beast. Truth be told. A beast of a Nintendo 64 game that many people love dearly, let me tell you that. So I've already made a file that I'm working on with a friend of mine, that I'm leaving it to the side as file 1. Thankfully, this is one of those games where you can actually copy and delete your files, your individual files. Isn't that great? Let's go ahead and start this file up, and a file name, I could put Goose, just to be funny, but who knows, maybe Goose will want to start a file of his own, so why don't we just do this? Name it after myself, in a way, anyway. So there we go, the Lazuli file. What shenanigans will unfold here? Well, considering I've been playing this game for literally over 20 years, and has played it a lot, almost all of those years I've probably done at least one playthrough of this game on average. I've played this game to death, and I've known people that play the game a lot too. And considering how long this game is, it's an RPG, ladies and gentlemen. That's impressive for a game to have such great replay value in a genre like that, if you know what I'm saying. You know. Anyways, the story starts off with Mario and Luigi in their house. Luigi gets a letter from the princess, which I think at this point they were starting to already call Princess Peach because back in the day, mainly the mid-90s, maybe a little bit of the late 90s as well, Princess Peach was addressed as Toadstool. And actually, fun fact, slightly relevant, Super Mario RPG, her name pretty much was Toadstool. Like, the party member Peach was called Toadstool. I'm pretty sure she was also the last party member to join you in Super Mario RPG. So that's worth noting. I know some of you that watch people do Let's Plays or commentaries of RPG games might be used to the speaker reading out the dialogue, which I may do for specific instances, but generally I don't really like to do that because I think it slows down the pace. A fair compromise, I think, is just to go through the dialogue at a modest pace, and you can just pause the video and read the dialogue yourself if you need to. Me personally, I've always had a fairly fast reading speed, so whenever I do gameplay videos with or without commentary, I will generally go slower through the text than I normally would. So, there you go. So, not much really to look at over here for now that will be relevant anytime soon, to be honest. Bunch of toads. You know, people complain about the large abundance of toads in newer Mario games, newer Mario RPG games in general, but some of them do have a personality. There's this guy over here. Salutations, Mario. Frosty. Yeah, expect a lot of pun names involving T and a word with the letter T, like vanity or something like that. So Frosty. This one, I know his name, but he didn't give it away, so I guess that'll become relevant later. Hey, keep a pin note on that for all you watching out there. This is a Bumpty, which is a penguin enemy from Yoshi's Island. Relevant, because it means that Bumpty shows up in two of my favorite games of all time. This guy, the minister of Princess Peach's Castle. Yeah, I remember there being a minister like that in Super Mario RPG, actually. But I think he was called, like, the Chancellor or something like that. So that's pretty cool. We got a toad dressed up in, I apologize if this isn't the correct term, but I think it's called a hijab that they're dressed up in. So that might actually become relevant sooner than you guys think. Keep another pin note on that. This is also a Mouser, which is another enemy from Yoshi's Island, funnily enough. Well, actually, technically there was Mouser from Super Mario Bros. 2 USA. That was a boss, though. I don't know if it's considered the same species. Here's a Koopa Troopa. I don't think it's a particular Koopa Troopa, but let's talk to him and see what he says. I come from Koopa Village. Whoa! Don't spoil a location name for the people watching, game. Wow. But this guy over here, he's a mayor. He's the mayor of Shiver City. Oh my god, what were they thinking when they put him here? Just so you guys know, we're not going to see this guy again for a long time. Like, I don't know how exactly I'm going to pace out this Let's Play, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see hide nor hair of that guy for at least 10 episodes. But most likely, a lot more than 10. Let's be real. This is an RPG. It's a shorter RPG. Mario RPGs tend to be shorter. It's kind of funny. It's like, what would you do? What would happen if you combine an RPG and a platformer lengthwise? And more often than not, you will get a product that's somewhere in between the length of the two. So, and it's funny I mention that because I usually use that comparison for a game called Mega Man X Command Mission because, yeah, it's like, oh, you combine Mega Man X in an RPG, and Mega Man X, if you know what you're doing, is a game that only takes like 2 hours to beat on a good day, or you speedrun it under an hour. So, and actually that RPG, that game is only like 15 to 20 hours, which is short by RPG standards. Paper Mario is a little longer than that, thankfully, but probably still on the shorter side of, you know, RPGs in general. Which is fine, you know. I'm always of the opinion/stance that it isn't how long a game is, it's how good and how enjoyable the game is within the span of time that it takes to complete it, if you know what I'm saying. And I know what some of you are thinking. Beating a game and completing a game are two completely different things. And on that subject, you're probably wondering what kind of a playthrough this is going to be for Paper Mario. The truth of the matter is, it's probably going to be somewhere in between. What we're going to be doing in this Let's Play may not be completion for your personal standards, but I think it will be completion for a lot of people's personal standards. So here we have Bowser and his assistant Kammy Koopa, who we've seen in the intro. It's quite the intro, I have to say. You know what was my favorite part of it? Was having Kammy Koopa literally just take on that one screen. That's a chef's kiss, but yeah, if you've played newer Paper Mario games, like, for example, Paper Mario the Origami King, which is a great game, by the way. I don't think it's as good as this or Paper Mario the Thousand-Year Door, but still a great game that I do actually recommend, even to some of you lapsed Paper Mario fans out there. Because it will scratch at least part of an itch that may not have been scratched for you in a very long time. But I'm going slightly off topic here. At any rate, though, we actually get a battle with Bowser at the beginning of the game, which actually is kind of how Super Mario RPG started off. But I seem to recall in Super Mario RPG that Mario was able to win that fight. You're probably wondering what the case here might be, because we've already gotten a hint if you actually bothered to watch the introduction cutscene. You already know what kind of a hand Bowser's dealing with, so Bowser's actually kind of playing around here. And speaking of playing around, yeah, this is obviously going to be a scripted fight. You're probably wondering, what kind of a scripted fight? Well, basically, you just press A over and over. Because all you can do is a dinky little jump, and Bowser a slightly less dinky claw attack. And this pretty much goes back and forth a little bit. And you can see we have HP, we have something called FP, which is short for flower points. That's basically your magic points. And this is actually a reference to Super Mario RPG, where you could collect flowers to increase your magic points. I don't know if they were called flower points in that game too, but I wouldn't be surprised if they were. So you can see the remnants and the DNA of the original Super Mario RPG 2 project that they had in mind for Paper Mario, for sure. But there are still quite a few unique quirks. The paper aesthetic is one of those, obviously. But the funny thing is, the original Paper Mario is probably the least involved with the paper gimmick of every single Paper Mario game in the entire series. I kid you not. Especially the Thousand Year Door and Origami King, just to name the two examples, go really ham with the paper stuff. I guess they kind of went back with it a little bit in Super Paper Mario, but Super Paper Mario, for better or for worse, really is kind of its own beast. It kind of inspired other, projects down the line. There ain't though, we already know that Bowser has the Star Rod, and he's gonna take advantage of it. And yeah, Bowser's about to win a fight against Mario. Not something you see every day outside of like a spin-off game where, assumingly, the player picks Bowser and like wins a race or a mini game or whatever, depending on whatever Mario spin-off you decide to play that day. Like maybe one day you're in a tennis mood, next day you're in a kart mood. And out of nowhere, you're like in a Mario baseball mood, and that's when I start to question. I'm partially kidding. I've played Mario Baseball before, and I think it's alright, but I don't know. I've seen some people give that one way too much credit, and I just get a weird feeling inside of myself. I don't know. Oh god, I'm terrible. I'm really. It's just, everyone has their specific taste, and there are so many Mario games out there, like, God. Let me tell you something. Paper Mario was the first Mario RPG I truly got into and played, because it was released at the perfect time, I think, for children to have their minds more developed, to better enjoy and comprehend RPGs, story-heavy games in general. I do remember renting Super Mario RPG, but I don't remember getting that far. Like I said, I definitely remember the introductory stuff, but obviously I beat the game down the line, of course, but, talking about when these games were new, which isn't a very relevant discussion point, I don't think. But, yes, welcome to Paper Mario. Here we go. The prologue, a plea from the stars, and the screen is blank. That's rather unsettling. So far, we haven't really noticed any I haven't really noticed anything strange or out of place from the original N64 version, or even the Wii Virtual Console version, which is the version that I pretty much started to main playing since the early 2010s. You're probably wondering if I'm going to be moving on to this version going forward. Probably not, to be honest with you guys. And there are numerous factors that I'm going to have plenty of time to talk about, and likely talk about over and over throughout the course of this playthrough, because we are going to be finishing Paper Mario from beginning to end. And it is an RPG, so there's going to be a lot of stuff, a lot of enemy battles that I'm going to do my best to try and cut out, and save time, and all that stuff, but this is one of my favorite games of all time. I do want to do it justice, but I also want to respect the viewer's time and, keep these videos high quality. And quality isn't just pure video quality, by the way. It can also be like the other qualities as well that can add up. Can still add up to a pretty bad video. You could have the best video quality in the world, but if nobody can hear your microphone, hear you talking to your microphone, or other factors, or you're not interesting to listen to, talking about, or whatever, it's probably not going to be a very good video, objectively speaking. So here we are in a random grove or grotto, and we got greeted by a bunch of star spirits. There's also this character over here, who is a little Goomba girl with a bow. I don't think we get her name right now, so I won't say it. She questions if this is Mario. I do want to bring attention to this because when I first played the game, I was mostly, like I said earlier, I was mostly playing the platformers, where I was very used to the Goombas being enemies. So when I got here, and she's about to start going on about her, like, Goomba thing. I mean, this is it. Dad, Goomba, Goobario. That last part threw me off when I first played this game. I thought I was going to have to do a boss fight right after that boss fight. A non-scripted one, probably. But... And then this happens, and I have to imagine I was pretty relieved. to see this instead of like another boss fight. But thankfully, we actually aren't going to have a real boss fight for quite some time. Yeah, this game starts off a little slow, but most RPGs do kind of start out slow. It's just the nature of the genre, really. But of all the RPGs I've played, I do think Paper Mario has one of the snappier introductory sections, to be sure. Although I do think, thinking about it, I think Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door might have a slightly faster paced prologue, actually. Now that I'm thinking about it. Not by much, but it is faster paced. Because technically, this is the second Mario RPG, but it's also the first in a new sub-series, as it were. So there's stuff that the developers probably assumed people would know going into it from Super Mario RPG or other RPGs in general. But it's also got a lot of its own stuff going for it, which I haven't been able to discuss yet, but we will be able to discuss it over the course of the playthrough, sooner rather than later. A lot of the mechanics are basically introduced to you within the prologue and a good bit of the first chapter. And man, there is a lot to discuss because, yeah, a lot of the reason people love Paper Mario is because of the gameplay mechanic that it has. But for now, we're in a Toad House, and I will go ahead and let you guys know that a Toad House is a very handy thing to have access to, because it's basically an inn. For, like, most RPGs will have an inn where you can just rest and recover all of your stats, all of your heart points, health, magic points, mana, etc., whatever the game decides to call it. So, but usually you have to pay a price. In the original Paper Mario, Toad Houses are free. Okay, so I noticed this when I was playing this with my friend. I want to bring attention to this seam in the building right here. Pretty sure that wasn't really a thing in the original. So, this version on the Nintendo Switch does have a few minor graphical differences. Whether they're better or worse to you, I don't really think they're that big of a deal. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you guys, but as someone who played a lot of this game on the Nintendo 64, a lot of this game on the Wii Virtual Console, it is a little jarring, and I do notice it. But is it the kind of thing that will ruin your experience if this is your first time playing this game? I sincerely doubt that. To be perfectly honest, I sincerely doubt that. It's the kind of thing that will get on the nerves of all of us people that have been playing this game since the beginning, but most people are not going to care. But I am going to point it out because it's interesting to talk about. We have save blocks, of course. They save your progress. This is probably going to be one of the friendliest games to do a Let's Play for with regards to data backup and all that stuff, because I can literally copy the file, which is pretty good. Oh, actually, let's go back out here, because to do that, I'm going to talk to this little kid. This is Goombario. Yeah, for some reason he decided to name himself after Mario. So, you might be wondering why I talked to him for just 2 bits of dialogue. Well, you're going to have to keep a pin note on that, but not for very long. Maybe like 5 or 10 minutes. So this is the Goomba family house, and we're going to go back here to talk to Goompa, the Goomba grandfather. Yeah, the Goomba grandfather is called Goompa, the grandmother is called Goomma, which just sounds very weird, and the mother and father are called Goommama and Goompapa, respectively. It's a bit easy to mix up the names, truth be told, with you guys, but you know, these NPCs are mainly only really important for the beginning of the game, and won't really be too terribly important for the rest of the game, unless you're going for side quests and stuff, which we will probably be doing. Worst case scenario might be like a bonus videos type of situation, in case you guys were curious about this sort of thing. But basically, we just needed to wait for the gate to be fixed so we can go through the gate. And now it seems the gate is fixed by Goompapa. Or is it Goopapa? No, I'm pretty sure it's Goompapa. Well, I'm glad we could get this gate situation sorted out. I wonder what destroyed it in the first place, though. But yeah, we basically have to go back to Toad Town, to Princess Peach's castle, and Shooting Star Summit, because that castle is way up high in the sky right now. And I don't think we have the means to go up there right now. So we probably do have to wish upon a star now, don't we? And that just reminds you of, like, Disney movies, doesn't it? Oh, crud. Here comes Cammy Koopa to ruin the stinking show.
My instincts were right. Mario, I can't believe you're on your feet after taking such a beating from King Bowser.
Yeah, I'm not gonna do that. But I just want to give you guys maybe like something to give your imagination to chew on. Because, God... Actually, she's probably not really all that annoying, to be honest. But for the beginning of the game, yeah, she's going to be a thorn in your side. And you're probably wondering why that is. Well, you're going to see why this is. And this is utterly ridiculous. Alright, she goes on about how Bowser is really powerful because of the Star Rod. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. There's also this. She can conjure up blocks, and she just vamooses that game. Like, completely destroyed all over again. It's ridiculous. And keep a pin note on that, because you think that's going to be like a one-time thing she does. No, it's something of an inside joke that Cammy Koopa really likes block magic. You're not going to see it again for a while, but... Again, keep another one of those pin marks in like the back of your mind as you're going through this Let's Play. Who am I kidding? You're probably going to watch this first part and then skip right to the end, and you'll probably still know what I'm talking about. Because, yeah, it's going to be that far ahead. What am I talking about, man? But, yeah, now we need to do something about this block. And you're probably wondering, well, how are we going to destroy this block? I've heard, from experience playing Super Mario RPG, that a hammer would be really good for this type of situation. Probably. But, you know, yeah, Goomba has the idea. Maybe we can break this block with Goompa's big hammer. And for some reason, hammer is like uppercased. That's going to be a very minor, weird thing about the Paper Mario script. Sometimes random words will have random capitalization. And I'm not sure why that is. So, now we go back here to the veranda. Suddenly there isn't a veranda anymore. That Cammy Koopa block shenanigans completely destroyed the veranda. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. This game, man. I'm telling you, this game has a personality. And personality goes a long way to making it someone's favorite game. You didn't know that? Well, now you do. Oh yeah, there's another thing that I really like about this game. There's this sound effect that plays when someone has a question mark bubble. It goes like, "Aye?" And that's just... I remember that being like a funny inside joke between me, my brother, and a friend of mine back in the childhood days. Like, oh man, that was just a running joke. It didn't help that a part of the reason why that was a running joke is because back then, when this game was new, I was playing this game all the time. This and the 1,000-Year Door. Both of those games, my God, I don't know how I managed to hold on to the disc and the cartridge of those games for as long as I did without either of them really deteriorating much. Okay, I'll lie. My Paper Mario 1,000-Year Door disc actually eventually became pretty scratched up because I was using it so much. But that may have also been because of the way I was storing the discs, but that's a whole nother kind of discussion. Man, I sure would love to hit this question mark block, but I don't think I have the means to do that right now. Fair warning that some people have reported weird glitches in this version of Paper Mario that are probably more so a result of the Nintendo 64 emulator that's being used, but yeah, use caution when hitting trees. I'm just going to say that much. I think these trees around this area are going to be pretty safe. By the way, don't be afraid to check bushes, because sometimes these bushes will have coins. And coins are good to collect, because coins are money. And what can you do with money? You can buy stuff. Thankfully, you don't have to buy the hammer. It's literally just in a bush. So I'm glad we finally have the hammer. It took maybe 10 to 15 minutes too long. We should have had this from the start. The thing about it is, like, most Mario RPGs after this, I think they kind of give it to you at the start. Nah, I'm just kidding. Some of them don't. Some of them do, some of them don't. But there usually is a hammer in Mario RPGs. Could be a reference to the fact that the Mario brothers are plumbers. I'm just taking a wild guess there. Wow, that bush had 2 coins. Alright. Up to 10 coins there. And this tree has an adorable doll that looks exactly like Princess Peach. That'll be a fun thing to add to the collection. Wait. The dolly that Goombaria lost. That's the name of the little Goomba girl that found Mario earlier. The name is revealed now. I think. Might have been revealed earlier, but I didn't really feel like bringing up that dialogue per se. But yeah, that dolly will be good to add to the collection. 18 coins, wow, I'm actually pretty confident about that. But I want to save the game because I have a sneaking suspicion something's about to happen. Yeah, I wonder what's going to happen here. We found the hammer, so we should probably head for home. Because we got to do something about that block. Oh, what's going on here?
Who are you guys? This is my playground, idiots. Nobody sets foot in here without my permission. Nobody. Prepare to start crying at the feet of Master Junior Troopa.
Oh my god, Junior Troopa. By the way, if I ever call Junior Troopa a name for short, it's going to be Troopa. Because like you can't call a character Junior in the Mario series nowadays because of the existence of Bowser Jr., who is sometimes referred to as Junior by Bowser. So that would be a huge conflict of interest. Hard to believe that Super Mario Sunshine, as well as Bowser Jr.'s introduction, was only about a year or 2 after Paper Mario. So this is the first real fight of the game, and you have jump and hammer as attacking options. But right now, that's all you can do. And you can't guard an attack to reduce its damage. So the developers just made a solution where every enemy only does 1 damage, for the most part. So, you know, when you start this fight, you're going to get a little bit of deja vu to the Bowser fight earlier. But I promise you, you can win this fight. And you can win it rather easily. Just keep spamming jump and hammer. I couldn't tell you which one of these is slightly faster for all you speedrun enthusiasts out there. I want to say it's jump, though. At least at this point in the game, it is. So, Junior Troopa's special attack. Full power! Oh my god. So now he does 2 damage per attack. By the way, I'm going to mention this now. You can just make yourself do nothing, which does have its uses. And I could do that here to drop myself to 3 HP, because, well, you'll see why. But anyway, why don't we knock this guy off his high horse for a bit, get some experience, which is called star points in Paper Mario. And, yeah, let's just get some experience and move on here. Every 100, you'll go up a level. We will be talking about that almost at the end of the prologue. When we get to the major prologue boss, we will be talking about it, because usually, if you know what you're doing, that is when you will level up for the first time. In my experience, anyway. It tends to be pretty consistent. So, we're done with this area. We're done with Junior Troopa's playground, I guess it was. Don't forget to keep getting coins, and we can hit this tree for a mushroom. Mushrooms will recover 5 HP in Paper Mario, and 1,000 Year Door. I think in Super Paper Mario, mushrooms restore 10 HP. Because the meta of Super Paper Mario is a lot more reliant on HP than the first 2 games. It's almost like it's trying to be something else. Okay. Another observation that I'm noticing, and this one is a lot more egregious than another one. Like, this wall looks like it could break apart at any minute. And this is, I've only observed this in the Switch version. Darn that pesky coin there. There we go. So you jump up here and you get a fire flower. Items like the fire flower, you may not want to use right away. You may want to pocket it for a battle encounter later on in your adventure where it may be more valuable to use. the first instance I would say that one should consider using a Fire Flower is actually the first major boss fight of the game at nearly the end of the prologue. I won't be using it, but if you did use it, I wouldn't blame you. So here's a regular enemy encounter with a Goomba. You can also, showing off that you can use items in battle, Fire Flower, Mushroom, there you go. Very solid starting item roster, to be honest. You got HP recovery and Fire Flower for attacks. Now, the Fire Flower will target all enemies, but there's nothing stopping you from using it on one enemy for 3 damage, which at this point in the game is pretty high. Emphasis on at this point in the game. And Goombas pretty much give the bare minimum experience and to not be a total waste of your time to fight, too. And now we have this guy. So, this Goomba decided to be smart and wear a hat with a spike on it. Because he was so tired at this point of over 15 years of being jumped on by Mario that he just got the brilliant idea to wear a spike on his head, and now Mario can't jump on him. This guy didn't get the memo that typically in Mario RPGs, Mario has a hammer. Kind of for that reason, to be honest. I think in Mario RPG it doesn't really matter, but yeah. Paragoombas are actually a classic enemy, though. These were introduced in Super Mario Bros. 3. They were a lot redder there, though, for the most part. And some of them would even spawn mini-Goombas to really harass you. So, unfortunately, this fight you're going to take a little bit of damage because you're fighting more than one opponent, which is fine. So we're going to knock that out. And regarding enemy encounters, I'm going to try and cut out repeat encounters as much as I can. But there's going to be a party member joining our party very soon that will bring an important contribution. And I do want to show those off where I can. But, yeah, that takes care of the initial sweep of enemies. This enemy I'm going to take care of, see you in a minute. Alright, that wasn't too bad. 1 coin, 2 experience. You can hit this tree for another coin. Man, we're already almost at 30 coins. It's kind of ridiculous. Alright, so here's the first star piece. A glowing star piece. Wait and see what this is for. You probably assume that it's something you need to use to trade for something. I will say, if that was your guess, that is a very good educated guess, let me tell you. So, heading back to Goomba Village. Never worry, kids. Here I am, thanks to young Mario here. Yeah, that old story. Well, we're only down to 8 HP. I'm not terribly concerned about 8 HP at this point in the game. But, funnily enough, I'm more concerned about 8 HP at this point in the game than I would literally, like, in the next chapter. Because of certain factors that happen and come about. Paper Mario's early game, I would say, is easier on the player than the Thousand Year Door's early game. Not by a lot, but it is worth mentioning that. So, you know, we got all this going on, you know. They were very worried about Goomba, which, hey, if your grandfather just suddenly disappeared, with or without a valuable piece of your house, I'm sure you would be concerned too. Although it seems like Goombaria is way more concerned than Goombario. It makes you wonder if Goombaria is just trying to act tough, which I guess makes sense. I don't know. I mean, I don't gel with that mindset personally, but... And then Goombario points out to the dolly, and I could be a jerk and say no, but I'm just gonna give it back to her because... Honestly, that item would clutter our inventory, but more importantly, if you give her the dolly back, she will give you another star piece. So, you know, at this point, you're able to get 2 star pieces back to back. Spoiler alert, there's going to be another one coming up fairly soon here. Star pieces can be found at a fairly brisk pace in this game. And I'm going to let you know, there are a lot of star pieces in the original Paper Mario. If you're familiar with the Thousand Year Door, there weren't as many. There were 100 in that game. You might be wondering how many star pieces are in the original Paper Mario. 160 star pieces. But it's not as interesting or compelling as it might sound because a big chunk of those star pieces are obtained from fetch quests and other really time-consuming tasks that, if I do decide to cover them in the Let's Play, will definitely be heavily edited. But I'm still gonna have to suffer through it. But you don't have to. Isn't that great? Rapping, huh? That's a weird way to describe that. Just a reminder, this game's English script was finalized in late 2000, early 2001, so if there is some lingo or wording that might be strange to you, or unfamiliar, that might be the reason. So welcome to the first badge, the Power Jump badge. The badge system is the bread and butter of Paper Mario's combat system. And thankfully, you start off with a very simple to understand badge. And Goomba generously offers you the option to go through a tutorial for badges, but we're not going to do that, because we don't need to do that. In order to use Power Jump, which is a move that you learn by equipping the badge, you will need flower points. You know, your magic points. Thankfully, anything that restores your HP in terms of like a heart block or a toad house will also fully recover your flower points and any other stats you may potentially pick up along the way, which is very good. So, and you know, taking on this task alone would be kind of boring, and for some reason Mario didn't feel the need to ask Luigi to come along with him. So Goomba formally lets you have the hammer, which again, for some reason, is randomly uppercased, as if the hammer has some importance, which I will admit, it is pretty important gameplay-wise, but it's not enough to warrant capitalizing the name of the tool, you know what I mean? But wouldn't it be neat if this Goombario kid would join our party? Oh wait, it seems like I'm not the only one that had this idea. Apparently he's no longer a child. You could have fooled me, he looks pretty small, but then again, all Goombas look small to me, considering I'm nearly 6 feet tall, but that's besides the point. But yeah, Goombario joins the party as our first party member of the game. Isn't that neat? And you get a little picture of the interaction with the party member and Mario, which is really cute, but we're going to skip through that, because it's technically tutorial dialogue, which is pointless to go through slowly in a Let's Play when I, as the speaker, or any speaker, can just tell you how the game works. So Goombario's shtick is that he's very informative and has studied a lot, so he knows a lot about locations and people and enemies in the game, which is pretty handy to have as a first party member. And of course, they copy this in the Thousand Year Door with another Goomba party member, which is actually kind of better than Goombario battle-wise, personality-wise also probably better. But there's a certain simplicity to having a party member, a Goomba party member, that's literally just a Goomba with a baseball cap, that's named after Mario. And it's a simplicity that I think people can appreciate, you know what I mean? I know it's only 2 HP, but it's a free heal, so why not? And so, Goombario? I was about to say, and this is Gooma over here. I don't remember where she was earlier, so yeah. That's Gooma. Wait, no, that's Goomama. I'm sorry, that's Goomama. Wait, Goomama? Jumama? Joe-mama? Let's not go down that path. Goombario over there. We got Goombario in our party. This is Gooma and Koopa. I'm going to tell you this. The veranda is dead right now, but let's try coming back here later and see what the situation is over there. Now we got the hammer. Let's hit this tree, and bam! We get a Goom Nut. This restores 3 flower points. That's neat, especially for this point in the game when you only start with 5 flower points. And now, but don't worry about this being a limited time thing. You can always come back to Goomba Village and hit this specific tree for more Goom Nuts in the future. The reason I'm stressing about it is because this is your only way to recover flower points at this point in the game, so it's pretty useful to have. Save your game because it's just a good idea, and let's destroy the blocks so that hopefully one of these days Goompapa will be able to fully fix this fence and can move on in peace. Wouldn't that be great? But let's trudge on forward and... oh, what's this? Beware of Goombas. Oh boy. Oh, and we are going to do this fight because now we have Goombario in the party. Alright. During a battle, you can change the order you attack with the Z button. If you're playing on the Switch Pro Controller like I am, the Z button is ZL, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Which is not a bad placement for the Z button, I think. Bada bing, bada boom. You can switch your party member. Goombario has a simple head bunk attack, which is very similar to Mario's jump. And the ability to tattle. See enemy description and make their HP visible. That's very important. This is a Goomba. Goombas are what you'd call small fries. Actually, they're pretty much the smallest fries. Hey, wait! I'm one of them! Max HP is 2, attack power is 1, defense is 0. You can jump on them or whack them with the hammer. These guys are old school. They've been around since you were in Super Mario Brothers, which is a game that was only 15 to 16 years old when this came out. Guess how old Super Mario Brothers is now? Probably older than your mom. I wish I was kidding. But yeah, now that we have a party member to have an extra attack, taking care of the Goombas is just made quite a bit easier. So I will cut out this fight. Alright, so we took care of that riffraff. Got a little bit of HP recovery there, which is pretty nice. Blocks of coins. Oh, we got a Paragoomba. I don't want to first strike the Paragoomba, because if I do, it'll knock them down, and they won't be considered Paragoombas anymore, so we gotta get this tattle. This is a Paragoomba. Obviously, Paragoombas are Goombas with wings. Max HP is 2, same stats as a Goomba, basically. You can't hit them with the hammer while they're airborne. If you do damage them, they will fall to the ground and become ordinary Goombas. Which is very good to know. Unfortunately, because of that, yeah, we're going to go ahead and use Power Jump, which does 3 damage, right now anyway. Which will instantly KO a 2 HP enemy, or a 3 HP enemy without defense. Pretty nice to have at this point in the game. I wouldn't spam Power Jump for normal enemy encounters unless it's like a do or die situation. Like if you're almost out of HP, for example. But at this point, you do have the enemy spawns, you have Mushroom. I mean, you should be fine. What I'm keeping an eye out for now, there we go, Spike Goomba. Now, fortunately, Spike Goomba, only Mario with his hammer can hurt it. So we're gonna tattle the Spike Goomba. Actually, I got a better idea. Let's knock out the Goomba behind him first. And then the next turn, tattle him and finish him off with Mario's hammer. Since the Spike Goomba does 2 damage. Yeah, I think that just saved me another hit point there, so that's pretty good. This is a Spiked Goomba. Spiked Goombas are Goombas with spikes on their heads. Same stats as a Goomba, but with twice the attack points. Whatever you do, don't jump on their spikes, or you will get hurt, or even paralyzed. That seems like a mistranslation. You will not get paralyzed if you accidentally jump on a spiked Goomba. But you will take damage, so you probably don't want to do that anyway. And they do give slightly more experience than the Goomba. I think Paragoombas give slightly more than a Goomba as well, but I think it's in between Spike Goomba and regular Goomba. Our second badge, the Close Call badge. When Mario is in danger, enemies sometimes fail to attack. You start off with 3 badge points, so all these 1-cost badges, you may as well equip them. Close Call is a bit of a low, mid-tier kind of badge. At this point in the game, it's more valuable than later on, because Danger State for Mario is basically 5 HP or less, which is a lot easier to hit when you have less than 5 HP. But yeah, later in the game, when you inevitably have a lot more HP to work with, potentially, depending on what you do, you probably won't be getting as much value out of the Close Call badge, but there might be other badges similar to it that you might get more value out of that maybe don't rely on an HP cap. Yeah, you, suspicious guy. Don't move. Hey, talking over here. Ah, you're Mario. I knew it. You can't go past here, Mr. Big Shot. It's a direct order from the Goomba King. That's right. I'm sorry, but the only way by is through the Goomba Bros. That's me, Red Goomba.
and my brother, Blue Goomba. Let's get him, Blue Goomba. Oh yeah, let's do it, right, Red Butter? Little red blah 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 blah.
So yeah, another mini-boss encounter. God, I'm basically only tattling the enemies just to get HP, because there is a badge later in the game that you can get that will reveal the HP of enemies, but it costs like 3 badge points. So it's still better to tattle the enemies to get the HP visible like the entire time. So, I mean, yeah, so I'm gonna tattle the mini-bosses and the bosses anyway. It's just pure benefit for the viewer and myself as the player. So, Blue Goomba has 6 HP.
Mario, how'd you like some of this?
They only do 1 damage, but because there's 2 of them, you're taking 2 damage per turn. But Blue Goomba only has 6 HP, 2 power jumps, knocks him out, only costs you 4 flower points. Pretty good deal if you ask me.
Blue Goomba! Ah, my little brother! You'll pay for that, Mario.
And now we can tattle Red Goomba with Goombario, and it's pretty much GG right here. This is Red Goomba. He's the older of the 2 notorious Goomba Bros. Max HP 7, attack power 1, blah blah blah. The Goomba King ordered him to try to stop you. You can take this guy, no problem. He has just a little more HP than an ordinary Goomba. A little more HP than the Blue Goomba too, for that matter. So, he has 7 HP, so basically it'd be 2 power jumps and a jump from Goombario. This is a great opportunity to use a Goom Nut, because you'll have exactly enough flower points to use 2 power jumps. Ain't that a hoot? But I think you'll have like an extra head bump to take into account, which is like, whatever. But it makes the fight go by a lot quicker, because you're doing 3 times the damage, so you may as well do it. Actually, to make it even faster, I do nothing. And usually, in these fights, these early fights, you will always get knocked down to 5 HP. So, if for some reason you find yourself in a situation where the enemy is not defeated by the time you get to 5 HP, you may see a little use of the Close Call badge, which basically increases the chances of you dodging an attack from 0% to, I don't know, like 5 to 10%. Maybe more than 10%, to be honest. So after that fight, we're going to go back to the heart block, and we're going to heal ourselves, because, yeah, we want to do that. So I definitely get 1 Goom Nut for that fight early on, but I would honestly save the rest of your Goom Nuts. I think we're down to 2. Yeah, definitely save the rest of them. I don't think we're going to need, flower point recovery for the next fight. If you examine this, it looks like a mushroom, but it's actually a Goomba. Hey, free experience. Free experience, but we are down 1 HP. That'll be alright for the next fight, though. You're going to see the method to my madness with the Goomba King. Okay? I know what you might be saying. Lazuli, you just spoiled the next boss fight! The idea of the red and blue Goomba mini-boss fight is the warning sign that you're gonna fight their king pretty soon. I don't think that's a spoiler. My god, what has spoiler culture become these days? I don't know what to tell you. But yeah, as soon as you enter the area, you immediately have to do the Goomba King boss fight. But there's actually some interesting stuff to explore around here after we're done with the boss fight. This is basically the chapter boss of the prologue, but the prologue is structured a bit differently than the main chapters of Paper Mario. Don't you know? So, yeah, here's the Goomba King. Look at his eyes, the way they move. You just know that this guy has a lot going on in his life if his eyes have to move that way. So, I don't know what to tell you.
Because I, the great and powerful King Goomba, will see to it that you advance no farther. You hear that, Mario? No farther. Not 1 step. Are you scared, little man? Are you scared? Yeah, you're scared, alright. You want to say you're sorry?
Wow, that King Goomba is really huge. But he's no match for Mario. So you got options in this boss fight. I'll tell you that. You definitely have options here. Actually, at least like 2 very good methods to knocking out this entire fight in one go. Because you have to fight King Goomba and you have to fight the Goomba Bros again. But in this fight, they are exactly the same as a normal Goomba. size notwithstanding. Basically, they each have 2 HP and 1 attack. But the King Goomba is a different story. So, yeah. Note the X on that tree behind the King Goomba, but before we do anything else, let's tattle the Goomba King, why don't we? This is the Goomba King. He's really big. I mean, look at him. He looks really powerful. Max HP is 10. That's a lot of HP, but he only has 1 attack. Technically. You'll see what I mean in a minute. He's the boss of Red Goomba and Blue Goomba. Who cares if he's strong? You're much stronger. Gee, I wonder what he ate to become so big. I'm not going to read that last part, though, because that is way too easy to take out of context. So your options for knocking out the Goomba brothers in this fight, you can use a Fire Flower. It's a little overkill since it's 3 to 2, but a method I like to use is aiming at the Goomnut tree and hitting it with Mario's hammer. Okay, that doesn't say same amount of damage, but you get the idea. And the Goomba King will respond similarly, because his attack will do 2 damage. And now, we use 2 power jumps and a headbutt from Goombario, and this fight is done faster than the Goomba Brothers fight. I'm not even kidding. You could use the Fire Flower and the Goomnut, but that is overkill. I would rather save the Fire Flower for a later encounter. But more importantly, now we can level up. So, a method that some of you might be familiar with for upgrading your stats is starting with HP, then flower points, and then badge points. But I would like to counter this, because you already start with 10 HP, but only 5 flower points and 3 badge points. So logically, wouldn't it make sense to upgrade your flower points to 10 to match the HP as well? However, after many playthroughs, I've come to find that upgrading badge points first really makes the early game a lot more flexible, and a lot more fun, I should say. We probably won't be upgrading badge points again for a little while, because I do want to upgrade flower points next, so we have a nice and even 10-10 on the HUD display. You can bring it up by C up or up on the right analog stick. Yeah, it'd be nice to have a little 10-10 on there. Hit this tree for the 3rd star piece, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, 3rd star piece. And examine this bush. And hit the switch. There we go.
Mario, good fight and all that. I must warn you, however, if you happen to find a strange switch somewhere, you should definitely not press it. It's dangerous.
For you. So, yeah, you hit that switch, and his castle, for some reason, becomes like a bridge. I mean, this animation is going a little slow, and I know I jumped the gun, but yeah, that's basically what's going to happen. The castle becomes a bridge, but it also becomes a catapult. Say bye-bye to the Goomba King. See you in Super Mario 64 DS for some reason, where he was renamed to Goomboss. It makes me wonder if this game ever gets remade. I wonder if they'll name him Goomboss, or they'll just keep Goomba King for consistency's sake. I don't really care either way, but hey, I really enjoyed seeing him show back up again in Super Mario 64 DS, I'll tell you that much. But, yeah, we're pretty much going to do some last-minute cleanup here, because, the length is running a little bit long in the tooth. Super Shroom restores 10 HP. Normally this is like a mid-game item, but at this point in the game, it'll fully recover your HP, so it's not bad. Something you should probably keep in storage, though. So let's head on through, and... oh, Cammy. See you guys next time, to be continued. Meanwhile, back at Peach's castle, or is it Bowser's castle now? Actually, ladies and gentlemen, the answer is probably somewhere in between that. At any rate, throughout the story of Paper Mario 64, as some of us would call it, differentiate... oh god, to separate it from the other Paper Mario games more so, We will be going back to Peach's castle, which is on top of Bowser's castle. That's a very weird sentence, I know. And we will get story updates from Bowser, Kamikoopa, and Princess Peach, formerly known as Princess Peach Toadstool. Because, yeah, Paper Mario was still, I would say it was at least a few years after that transition really started, and then by the time this game came out, they were already settled with just calling her Peach from then on and there. Matter of fact, I think she, actually thinking about it, wasn't she called Peach in Super Mario Kart? And that came out in 1992. But I still think it was mostly inconsistent. One way to look at the Toadstool Peach situation is very similar to the Dr. Robotnik and Eggman situation for Sonic the Hedgehog around that time as well. And they didn't settle on just calling him Eggman everywhere until Sonic Adventure was localized for the United States and other territories in 1999. That game actually released a year before in Japan, but yeah, back then localizations took a lot longer than they do nowadays. Actually, I would say for like the better part of a decade, we've been able to enjoy either near simultaneous or actually simultaneous worldwide releases for most video games nowadays. Which is a good thing, but on a more important note,
King Bowser, you mustn't worry.
because we have the introduction of one of the best characters in the Mario series, not just Paper Mario. Meet the Koopa Brothers. Most certainly based on the Ninja Turtles. Which, actually, by this point, the Ninja Turtles were actually like almost a decade and a half old, which is kind of funny to think about, because now the Ninja Turtles series is like almost 40 years old.
Here come the Koopa Brothers, dude. Oh yeah, we're the coolest of cool.
I'm trying my best to imitate how people talk in the 90s, but be forewarned, while I was technically born in the 90s, I was only really conscious for like half of that decade, technically. Although I feel like I enjoyed pretty much everything that decade had to offer anyway, because I happened to be born near the start of it. But still,
Pshaw, get real, King Bowser. Yeah, the Goomba King was huge, but he was a total wimbola.
that's a funny word, actually.
We're nothing like him. See, what we've got going on is the power of teamwork. Turtle power, dude. Together, we can put the hurt on Mario in seconds flat.
You know, that's a pretty big claim to make. And Kamikoopa's just like, you better sell it. Holy cow. Man, a lot of this dialogue is actually really good, honestly. Even though there's some weird quirks and spots. Random capitalizations for no reason, and a few words that may or may not have been outdated by the time this game came out, if not like a few years afterwards, because yeah, the game originally released in 2000 in Japan. They probably started localization around then, so it was the turn of a new decade, and actually the start of a whole new century when you really think about it. So the transition was not very smooth for some people, but I'm sure for others it might have been. There was also this fear of like Y2K and all this stuff, which it's just typical paranoid stuff that people poke fun at nowadays, looking back, that in 2012. Something about the Mayan calendar or something, I think. It's been a while for me since all that started up. But, yeah, nothing really came of that. But as far as, like, culture is concerned, looking back on it, I was still fairly young myself, but I do remember that the year 2000 was kind of a transitional period. There was still a little bit of the 90s going on at the time, because, we got the launch of, like, the PlayStation 2. As far as video games are concerned, we did get the launch of the PlayStation 2. But on the Nintendo side of things, we were still holding on to the Nintendo 64. Anyway, now that we're done with that almost filler section, we can get back to the main meat of the gameplay here, and we're going to collect this Sleepy Sheep. And we're going to want to hold on to that, because not to use it for its actual use, but for another purpose pertaining to what is technically considered a side quest, but you can actually knock it out during the main course of the story. which I will be focusing on. This is the hammer throw badge. Alright, we need to talk about the hammer throw badge, because, yeah, I upgraded badge points so I have enough to equip it, sure. It's only 2 flower points, and you might be wondering what it does. Well, true to the name of the badge, it does what it advertises. It lets you throw your hammer, right? Which means you can throw your hammer at literally any enemy type in the game. It doesn't matter if they're in the air, they're flying, they have spikes, or anything like that, really. Hammer throw will target any enemy in the game. But it costs 2 flower points and 2 badge points to equip. Which sadly means that it's actually not a very good deal at this exact point in the game. Anyway, meet Rusty, which is the name of this toad over here. Salutations, you are Mario, are you not? Of course I know who you are. I'm the wise toad Rusty. Which is obviously a pun on Rusty. Although I get the feeling that this guy isn't very rusty. He actually knows a lot of stuff. I'm only pointing this out because he's technically very useful in a later chapter in the game, but he's actually a very optional resource. Before we do that, though, let's head down this pipe so that we can check up on old Luigi. I'm sure he was worried about Mario after the whole castle in the sky situation. Yeah, he's clearly wondering about it, but we do, when you come back to Mario's house at this point of the game, you do get a little more backstory on what happened during the intro, because you do wonder what the heck happened to Luigi during all that. Luigi never actually followed you deeper into the castle. He was still in, like, the foyer, so, you know.
After all that castle craziness, I was really worried about you, bro. I ran outside just as the earthquake started, so I managed to escape in time.
Yeah, that's all we needed to know. Luigi does get a little jealous because you will certainly have at least one partner by this point in the game. One party member, whatever you want to call them. And yeah, they have a little chat about that. You'll find that whether optional or mandatory, Goombario will be one of the more talkative party members in your party throughout the entire game, really. So, you know, Luigi just kind of gives a blessing to Goombario and whatever other party members come about. I don't think there's anything in the bushes here, but I do want to show off Mario's house now, because I don't know how many times I'm going to be coming back here during the main part of this Let's Play. Bonus videos, potentially, for sure. You may notice this out-of-place square wood panel on the floor. Keep a pin note on that. Here's a box where letters to Mario are addressed. It's empty right now. And you can sleep in the Mario Brothers bed to recover your HP and flower points, which is useful. But there's obviously going to be a Toad house in Toad Town where we just were, so just consider it as extra options. And this is the chalkboard where you can check on badges collected, star pieces collected, and other statistics that a lot of people might go for. You can, so why not? So that covers Rusty and the Mario Brothers house. A lot of these other Toads are kind of just here for the most part. But here we have an item shop. A very important resource in any RPG. Wow, power blocks are really cheap. I'm actually going to buy one of these right now for future reference. You'll see why. I'm really tempted to buy another fire flower, but I'm looking at my item inventory. Actually, this is a good time to show off. Welcome to the Shroom Grocery. How can I help you today? So you can buy items, obviously, but I don't know why they put the option here. You have to go to the item and buy it. I don't know why they put it here. You can sell items. You can check items, which I think is a slight mistranslation. This basically means to store. And the claim is to claim your items back. You can store up to 32 items, which is, funnily enough, half of 64. We're going to store the Super Shroom because that restores 10 HP. It's not going to be terribly useful right now because if you know what you're doing, you're rarely going to be below 5 HP and in the early game anyway, so mushrooms will be a little more valuable. I think I want to keep both of the mushrooms I have. I'm going to store one of these. Actually, you know what? I'm going to store both of the Goom Nuts, to be honest, because they will be useful for future reference. So we want to keep Sleepy Sheep, buy a power block. If you use the Fire Flower earlier against the Goomba King or whatever, for whatever reason, or maybe the Goomba Brothers actually was a pretty solid time to use a fire flower, buy another one. Matter of fact, I'm gonna buy another one. Actually, no. I just remembered I don't really need to buy another one. Honey syrups aren't going to be terribly useful right now either because we only have 5 flower points. So, more toads just lying about. Man, like I said, people complain about the overusage of toads in later Mario RPGs, but there were plenty in the original Paper Mario. And the 1000-Year Door, believe it or not. It was actually Super Paper Mario that didn't have as many. These guys look kind of funny. Above us, on the top floor, there is a dojo. We are here, always. Training at the dojo. Unless our master isn't here, in which case the dojo's closed. A letter just arrived saying the master will return soon. We will train again. Soon. Our master is wandering the world to purify his mind and train his body. Our master was a strong man. He is going to come back a very, very strong man. We will wait here, right here, until our master returns. Waiting is part of our training. Yeah, that sounds like the kind of thing a trainee would say. Alright, we come over here to the second section of Toad Town. Hey, another free star piece in a tree. There seems to be a rash going around that. There's this bulletin board right here that you can examine for, like, news updates throughout the story. The castle was uprooted. Wow. That's actually not a word you hear every day. Yeah, castle rose into the sky, blah, blah, blah. But if you examine the back, there's Toad Town Underground news. I'm scribbling on the back of the notice board. How naughty. Yeah. So, you get, like, gossip and stuff. This house is very interesting with the spinning roof, but we're not going to worry about that right now. What's probably going to catch your attention is the big door with a star on it, so why don't we just go through that? And this is the ruins of Peach's Castle. We talked to this toad over here.
I can't believe that Princess Peach's castle was here just a little while ago. Wow, I was in the castle when it started to shake, but my lightning quick feet got me out. I know Luigi made it out along with maybe a few others, but everyone else was taken.
Yeah, toads around this time had very scraggly voices. I don't think it's changed very much in newer Mario games, and then again, for the most part, they kind of steer away from the voice acting stuff after Super Mario Sunshine, which I don't blame them. The voice acting in Super Mario Sunshine wasn't all that great. Anyway, welcome to Shooting Star Summit. There's an interesting section below here, but we're going to come up here first. Mostly because you can come over here and, oh, I'm surprised. You can find a star piece in Shooting Star Summit. Yeah, very, totally not surprising, but we want to go up the steps here because this is going to lead us to the next important story beat, which I'm sure some of you actually care about watching this. Thank you, by the way. And yeah, we're gonna come up here and talk to the Star Spirits all over again. Yeah, basically just giving you more information about what you probably already ascertained, not just from watching the intro cutscene, but what you probably ascertained from the earlier conversation with the Star Spirits. So, I guess while this is going on, it is worth mentioning. I don't know what other point in the game I'm going to have a convenient time to mention this, but the Star Spirits do return in a later Mario game, believe it or not. I know people are like, they're like, oh, Mario RPG stuff very rarely tends to be referenced outside of the RPG games, especially the RPG sub-series. Like, Paper Mario stuff is usually rarely referenced outside of Paper Mario. And same with the Mario and Luigi stuff, and especially the Super Mario RPG stuff, for partially, probably at least for legal reasons. But, yeah, the original Paper Mario, I mentioned in the last episode that Goomba King sort of came back in Super Mario 64 DS as Goomboss, but the Star Spirits actually were brought back in Mario Party 5, believe it or not, which, funnily enough, actually released between the original Paper Mario and the 1000-Year Door. It was released in 2003, a year after Mario Party 4. Yeah, Mario Party games were doing the yearly release thing around that time. For better or for worse, I would say at first kind of for the better, but later on, maybe they should have stopped at 6, but that's neither here nor there. But what's interesting is that they bring back the Star Spirits in Mario Party 5, and they each represent like a mode in that game. which is kind of funny. And that's like the only other time. I can only recall 2 instances where Paper Mario is referenced. And I mean the original Paper Mario, not the series as a whole. The original Paper Mario was referenced outside of the Paper Mario series. Heck, the Thousand Year Door obviously makes references to this game as well, just not as much as you might think. But yeah, referenced in a pseudo remake. I call Super Mario 64 DS a pseudo remake because it remakes the original game, but it adds so much and changes so much that it almost feels like its own. Almost kind of feels like a sequel too, like a Super Mario 64 1.5. Funnily enough. Yeah, Goomba King randomly getting brought back there, and then the stuff with Mario Party 5. And funnily enough, Super Mario 64 DS released the same year as the Thousand Year Door. It was a launch game for the Nintendo DS. I don't know how many times I'm going to mention this throughout this playthrough, probably not that many, but 2004 was a very good year for video games, guys. I mean, I was already a teenager by that time, so I was at the perfect age to enjoy that at the peak. Not to say that 2004 was the only great year for video games. Oh no, 1998 was pretty good too. But and the year 2001 was also great, as far as I know. After 2004 though, I don't remember any of those years really topping it, to be honest. I remember being able to play a brand new game and really enjoying it. During the later half of the year, it seemed almost like a weekly occurrence, which nowadays I can't even fathom, because nowadays I probably get a brand new game, and I say that in quotation marks with all the remasters they do nowadays, probably once every month and a half on average, to be honest. Sometimes it'll pick up a little bit, but nah, man, something like 2004 was something else. So, we're already brought back to Peach's Castle for another Peach segment. They kind of spam these a little bit in the early part of the game. And it's mostly just dialogue, but I believe this is the part where we get introduced to another kind of important character, mostly just for the Peach side of things, sadly. And, yeah, these are mostly kind of boring. My dear Princess Peach. I don't even really feel like doing a Bowser voice right now, to be honest. So, definitely not the Kammy Koopa voice either. Like, holy cow. Doing that witch voice is, Man, it was stressful for me to do that Toad voice earlier? Kind of. But thankfully, the Toads typically don't have a lot to say in this game, because it's quantity over quality. But, yeah, Kammy is a bit more wordy than that. So I don't even think I'm going to touch that for a while. But early on in the game, you deal with Kammy, obviously in the prologue, and you don't really deal with her very much until basically the final chapter of the game. When obviously you may or may not have to fight against her, properly. Yeah, properly. We'll just see about that, why don't we? But, yeah, we get the cutscene earlier with the Koopa Brothers, and we know the Koopa Brothers are probably going to be the next real threat, but we're not really going to mess with them for a little while yet. We're still technically in the prologue, which I know is kind of aggravating, that I kind of ended the last episode making you believe it was the end of the prologue, but no. And we should be in Chapter 1, but again, nah. Chapter 1 isn't going to start for a little while longer. We still got a good bit more to go through. So, Paper Mario starts a little bit slow, but I assure you, this game really starts to pick up steam as we enter the first chapter, and especially the second chapter, to be honest. So say hello to the little star kid known as Twink. Oh, what an unfortunate name to give a character of any kind, but to give one to a little star kid, oh. Look, all I'm going to say is that back in 2000, which probably the bulk of this game was localized in the year 2000, I don't think Twink had the same meaning then as it started to get, like, several years afterwards. And I'm not going to divulge what that word typically means for people nowadays, but I will say that it's a very particular word in a certain community, and I will tell you that you can go and Google that at your own discretion. Be forewarned that some of the results you may run into may not be safe for the context that you're looking. They might not be safe for work. Let me just say that much. So, yeah. But the idea behind naming a Star Kid Twink is short for Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, which was a pretty popular song around that time for little children. I wouldn't be surprised if it has severely fallen out of favor a long time ago, but yeah, we have to remember the time period. Although I have to say, despite that, Paper Mario as a whole has aged pretty stinking well for a Nintendo 64 game. And I do think part of that is the graphical style they went with, because it's like 2D characters with 3D backgrounds for the most part. And the 3D backgrounds kind of aged a little bit, but you could just pass it off as like being a papercraft sort of aesthetic, which isn't as noticeable in the first game here as it is in the later games, obviously, so yeah. So basically, the idea with the Peach segments is that it's Peach and Twink, and they're talking back to back, and, oh, by the way, that Lucky Star, that's going to be a godsend. And we should be getting that in, like, a few minutes. But, yeah, basically, Peach and Twink do the best that they can from the position that they're in to help Mario on his quest, which basically boils down to mostly giving him information that the player will pick up on. So, yeah, you already know what that means. More filler dialogue, which, hey, RPGs, they have a bunch of that, to be fair. So, the key thing to take away from this particular instance is that we're going to be getting the item called the Lucky Star, and the Lucky Star is an item that basically makes it so the combat system is fully unlocked. Let's just say. So if you didn't enjoy only being able to do like a single point of damage or paying 2 FP to do 3 damage, well, you don't have to worry about that no more. So let's go over here and we have a little house. So let's talk to this wizard or something like that, sorceress.
Ah, my, hello there, Mario. This spot is a little tight for fortune telling. If you want your fortune read, talk to me over the counter.
So this is, okay, her lovely, okay, I guess she's a lovely fortune teller, so. Basically, you can come to her and you can pay her coins to get information about locations of certain items. You can pay 5 coins for star pieces, which, considering how many there are, is a solid deal. 20 for a badge, and 30 for something called a super block, which will not be relevant until more than halfway through Chapter 2. So we'll put a pin note on that. I'm not really going to need anything like that, but I wanted to point it out for you guys. Let's head up the steps, and we get to talk to this little guy over here by the name of Merlo of Shooting Star Summit, of course. He's a star piece collector. Basically, you give him star pieces, and he gives you badges in return. However, we'll go ahead and grab this badge, the Attack FXA badge. So the FX badges, when you equip them, they don't cost badge points. Thankfully. We're here for a little while, probably at least for the next while. As we start to head back to Toad Town, well, we get hit on the head by Twink. Accidentally, of course. But yes, yeah, Twink and Mario, they introduce themselves to each other formally. And, you know, there's a lot of happy little dialogue about that sort of thing. It's really tempting for me to skip through this, but I know some of you guys want to read the dialogue for yourselves, so I'm just trying to be accommodating within reason. The Lucky Star, a star-shaped pendant that lets you use the action command. Thank God, dude. So now we can actually formally do some real attacks. You know what would be really nice? If we had a very convenient mini-boss fight coming up that we could actually have as an excuse to use that sort of thing, so we could show all that off properly. You know? By the way, the Lucky Star also applies to your party members as well. Ooh, speak of the devil, we get Kamek? Well, that's a pleasant surprise, but I think actually this isn't the Kamek, it's just a regular Magic Koopa. But here is a fun fact for you guys. Did you know that Kamek is actually the Japanese name for Magic Koopas? It's sort of a similar situation to Bowser and being called King Koopa in Japan, while Koopas are called Nokonokos, which is a very funny, it's funny, weird, I must admit. So we're going to tattle Magic Koopa right now because Magic Koopa is actually an enemy type we'll be seeing again in the final chapter. And I'm pretty sure if you do a tattle here, the tattle will, carry over to there. And even if it doesn't, we can just tattle the Magic Koopa again. It's no big deal. 8 HP is a good bit. And you don't really, well, I guess we could show off Hammer Throw. And bam. Oh wow, and the Hammer Throw knocks him down too, so that's pretty cool. Blocking the magic attack is pretty hard though. So he has 3 attack, which is fair. But we do Power Jump, and now it does 4 damage. Which is pretty stinging good. And we should finish it off with a full head bonk. Yep, there we go. So your jump attacks, as well as Goombario's head bonk, will do 1 damage twice. And your hammer attack will do 2 damage fully. Which means that when you're going up against enemies in the early game, you need to keep an eye out for enemies that have a defense point. Which, we're actually going to be seeing one at the start of Chapter 1. Although it's worth noting that that enemy only really has the defense point going for it, because otherwise it's a very easy enemy to deal with. Arguably easier than the Goombas, even. I would argue it's easier than the Spike Goomba, at least. Since the Spike Goomba deals 2 damage and all that, so... Yeah, Twink also passes on the message that Peach wanted to pass on to Mario, which is very nice of Twink. The Star Kid is trying to do the best that he can to one day become a fully fledged star, if not a fully fledged star spirit, which is commendable, I must say. But the Twink situation is something we'll only get little bits and pieces on throughout the story,